If your business feels heavy, scattered, or really harder than it should be, it's probably not because you're doing it wrong. It's probably because the journey you're asking your clients to take doesn't match how you're designed to lead them. And in today's episode, I want to share with you how to use your own internal feedback, whether you care about human design or not, to tell if your client journey actually fits. If it doesn't light you up, it won't sell. And that is your sign to shift things in your business. Hi, I'm your host, Maggie Olson. I'm your business mentor, your human design expert, and the creator of the magnetic method designed to convert formula. I help women entrepreneurs just like you simplify their strategy, align their sales with their energy, and finally build a business that feels like freedom, not like pressure. After nearly 2 decades in entrepreneurship, I have learned that success isn't actually about doing more. It's about aligning with what already works for you, tapping into your natural energy. And here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast, we're going to blend human design with practical business strategy to help you attract clients naturally, sell with confidence, and grow with ease. So if you're ready to design a business that lights you up, converts with clarity, and learn more about working with me inside of the Magnetic Method mentorship and all of my other programs, you're going to find the link to all of that in the show notes, and you're going to find all of that information here on the podcast. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Hello and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I am your host. I am your business mentor. I'm your human design expert. And I am so excited to talk about the client journey today because this is something that has been showing up a lot in some of the recent offer audits that I have given to people. So it's something that I wanted to bring to the podcast because a lot of people think their problem is their visibility, their consistency, their confidence. And yes, it can be that. However, because we live in a day and age where like self-help books and like all of that like self-help visibility, like post hustle era, I'm going to be consistent on my own terms, right? Like we have so much of that stuff already like there, we're tuned into it. A lot of times what people in business are forgetting is their client journey is often unclear or feels mismatched. So your client journey is how someone goes from cold to sold in your ecosystem. Now, I will say from my own just personal business growth that every business that I have owned, my client journey has needed some finessing, we'll say. And this is not to say that it's ever going to be perfect, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially when things are not landing correctly, right? You're doing all of the content, you're showing up, you're, doing all of the things that you quote unquote should be doing, but something is still amiss. It might be your client journey. And it just might be that things have gotten too muddied, right? I notice for me and my clients as well, when they come to me and they're telling me, how someone comes into their ecosystem and how they can kind of just walk the journey of, going from cold lead to sold lead, it can just be messy sometimes. And I think it's very easy to kind of let that mess come in because we do tend to be like, oh, this person wants this thing, I'm going to make it for them. Because surely if one person wants it, more people are out there, right? So it can kind of just come down to that, an audit that you need to do in order to make sure that everything is still aligned. So it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that your client journey is the experience that someone has with you, and it can get muddied along the way. So it doesn't have to mean anything bad, is I guess what I'm trying to say, right? And your client journey is not just funnels and links. It's the trust, right? It's that know, like, trust that someone in your network or the pool of people who is close to you, right? It's that trust that develops. And then it's also them feeling seen, heard, and understood. Okay. So if you're going to take a look at your client journey, I want to give you some tips here for looking at it, because this comes down to really kind of four main things. At least these are the four things that I see most often that often get muddied, right? You want to understand, how do people find you, right? So where are you showing up where a bigger pool, your cold or cool leads, can come in contact with you? This is like making that attraction marketing, right? Where it's the top. You're bringing in people, they're following you maybe on social media, whatever, okay? And then the next is, how are people interacting with you? Now, how are people interacting with you is an interesting one, because this is one that a lot of people feel like they don't have enough interaction. And that goes back to a couple weeks ago when I talked about on the podcast, we have attraction marketing, and then we have, there's those 3 stages of marketing that we have that kind of bring people from that, like, oh, I just found this person, to, oh, I'm now influenced by this person. Oh, I want to buy from this person, right? So it can be that easy. So how people interact with you, is your content mostly attraction content? Or is your content a good mix of attraction and influencing content where you're sharing, here's how to do XYZ in your business, or here's how to do ABC with, I don't know, the flowers you're going to plant in your yard, right? How are people interacting with you? Are they commenting? Are they liking? Are they saving, right? What kind of metrics can you look at and see? What are the people doing? Are they in your DMs? Are you having conversations? Are you inviting them to calls, right? And then the third thing here that is one of the more common things is, how are decisions made? So how does your client make the decision to move to the next stage in whatever you're doing, right? So if we take, for example, you have a freebie, and that freebie goes to a call, and that call is then used for you to, sell, basically, or put them into different buckets of, like, oh, you would be great for my low offer. You would be great for my mid offer. You would be great for my top offer, right? So that is a client journey where you've attracted people from a larger space. They've opted into your freebie. They've gotten on a call, or maybe from that freebie, there's an email sequence, right? There's a million different ways to figure that all out. But that's your job, to figure that out. What feels easiest, best for you to support, best for you to set up. Because remember, behind the scenes, you had to set all this stuff up. So what is the path of least resistance for both you and them? That's another thing to remember, is that the path of least resistance is going to be the simplest and easiest path. And in business, simple and easy equal scalable. So the last example here, the last thing that I see the most of what people really struggle with in their client journey is how supported someone who's following you feels before money exchanges, before there's any type of money exchange happening. And that is where that, seen, heard, understood, that's where that really comes in. So if you're looking at that triangle, the upside down triangle of attraction marketing, influencing marketing, sales marketing, right? You want people in those top 2 tiers to be really supported. And I'm not saying value dump on them. I'm saying understand what do my people like to receive DMs? Do they like to receive emails? How are they opening? Are they responding? Are they sharing? Like, what are those things? Are you doing some market research calls, right? Where you can understand, okay, my ideal client likes to do A, B, and C. Okay. And market research is not just at the beginning of your business. I tell my clients to do market research all of the time. You can look at your posts as market research. You can look at your post types as market research. You can look at your free calls as market research, right? When you do like some of those, even your paid stuff, you can look at that as market research. Remember to add in some of those questions of like, okay, like, so in my offer audit, this is an example. In my offer audit, it's a free call. We hop on. In the beginning of that call, I ask whoever is on with me, what is one thing you want to get out of this call or our time together? What would make this call like the icing on the cake that you need to hear today? Because then I know. So that seed is now planted in my brain because I have them fill out a form. I listen to them share what they're going to share, and then I can formulate how I want to deliver what they've shared in their form, as well as bring in some of that nuance that they've just shared with me, right? Because you can have a great offer and you can still lose people in the journey if things feel confusing. Right? If they're confused, if a buyer is confused, rushed, or misaligned, they are not going to buy. And a lot of times, this is what happens. People will clean up their client journey. They'll start to understand how their human design works, how they make decisions, or how they want to feel in their business, and things will start to click. It is a lot like magic, but like it's really that energetic alignment that is happening. So, let's talk a little bit about why misaligned client journeys create burnout, which burnout might be one of my favorite things to talk about, at least for the last few episodes. A lot of the episodes I've been mentioning burnout all the time. So anyway, all of that to say, remember a few episodes ago, I talked about burnout and I talked about a lot of it being because of some sort of misalignment, right? You're using your energy wrong. And yes, burnout is real, but also like, are you doing the things that you're a hell yes for, right? Or are you doing the things that you're like, this doesn't really align with me, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Because when you're not putting your energy in the right places, now I also understand sometimes as grownups, we have to do the things we don't want to do. But I would say a caveat to that is, even though I have to do things I don't necessarily want to do, how can I make it fun? How can I make it enjoyable for me to do? So I would invite you to remember that, right? Like, I don't love doing the laundry, but like, how can I make it fun? I don't love doing my accounting, but how can I make it fun, right? So in business, we'll take the accounting example because that's probably a better example for this podcast. So for my accounting, so I make sure that all of my books are aligned. I have, all of the things that I need to do. However, I make sure to, on the day that I'm going to go do my accounting, I stop at a coffee shop and I get myself a little bougie coffee drink, right? And then I come home, I put on one of my favorite sweatshirts. I have a little dance party before to some music that just like hits that, like, yes, I'm so excited, amp me up kind of music. And then I put on some focus music and I'll sit down and I do my accounting. Now, I used to dread doing my accounting because it's just one of those things that just doesn't bring me joy, right? Like that does not necessarily, it matters to me, but it matters, like there are many other things that matter more than the books. So, being able to have that like monthly little coffee date with myself and make that really luxurious and make that really like, oh my gosh, I look forward to that now. Okay. So where I was fretting and burning myself out and not utilizing my energy properly. Now I've shifted that so that it's fun. I like it. It's easy to do, right? So that's what I mean when like the client journeys can create burnout. Now, that example is definitely like an internal, right? Like I'm my own client essentially in that case. However, when we think about your clients, so the people that you are bringing into your paid programs, they're signing, right? They're interacting with you. So why misaligned client journeys can create burnout, right? We're thinking about things like over-posting, over-explaining, dreading the DMs, avoiding your follow-ups, and really feeling pushy or even invisible, right? And sometimes at the same time, where you're like, I'm talking into a void, I feel like I'm pushy, somebody please help me. However, I would love for you to reframe this, right? Because we've talked a ton about burnout, and I want to just remind you that burnout is not always about working too much. Sometimes it's also about working against yourself, right? Against your energy. So again, I go back to how can you make these things fun for you, especially if you're a high ticket coach, right? That has a high ticket program that you're selling where you are probably looking for 1 to 3 clients per month, right? If you're over posting, if you're over explaining, if you're dreading the DMs, if you're avoiding the follow-ups, even if the follow-ups are via email, right? Even if you're not using the DMs, like say you're using your email instead of DMs, which is totally cool. If you're avoiding following up with people, right, you're not going to book people because people aren't going to know that you still want them to keep moving. So when you work against yourself here, this is where I want to bring in human design, because human design, your specific human design is going to give you feedback. It doesn't have to be your identity, but it is feedback for you to understand. And it gives you warning signals, right? Of like when things are aligned, when things are not aligned, especially when you're listening to your authority, your internal authority, that is going to give you the feedback that you need. So let's get into a little bit of human design here. So think of human design as your feedback system, not your rule book. And this is what I see. I see this all the time with people. And I feel like this is something that is showing up lately, is that people, and I saw this with the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and like all of those things, right? All of those like self-helpy things where it's like, oh, I took this test and I am blah, blah, blah. A lot of times what happens is people will take this, they'll discover I'm a manifesting generator. Oh my God, I'm meant to be crazy. That doesn't mean you can't be consistent. That doesn't mean you can't develop consistency. I see this a lot in projectors and reflectors, sometimes in manifestors, right? It's something that they're like, oh, well, they've put themselves in this box. Oh, I'm a reflector. I can't possibly do anything for 28 days. And then they sit and they twiddle their thumbs and they're like, why isn't anything happening? This is not to say that you're going to go and push yourself to work like a manifesting generator, but you are going to develop consistency as a muscle, right? So you know that as a projector, manifester, reflector, that you are likely going to work at a slower pace than a manifesting generator or a generator. So things are going to take a little bit longer. That's okay. That doesn't mean you can't take 20 minutes of your day to answer some DMs. That doesn't mean you can't take 10 minutes a day to schedule a couple of posts. That doesn't mean you can't set aside an hour to create some really meaningful and well thought out content. That doesn't mean you can't go and email your list and say, hey, I'm looking for opportunities to speak in front of other people's audiences, whether that's a podcast or a blog swap or a mastermind. I would love to get in front of your aligned audience that's already listening, right? So Something I want to lean into here when we're talking about human design is that when you're looking for that feedback, there's three main places that you can kind of look and feel and understand how this is going to work for you. So you're going to want to know your type, because that's how your energy moves people. Okay. So, for example, generators and mani-gens, they're going to move a little bit faster. And that's okay. Now, so you know your type, you understand how your energy moves, but what's the next thing, right? How do you know when misalignment is there? That's going to be your not self theme. So when you find yourself saying, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm angry, I'm feeling bitter, I feel resent, right? Like that's your body, right? That's your human design going, hey, something's not, is waving the flag saying, hey, something is amiss here. Let's look for this. Let's figure it out, right? Slow down, stop. And then, but okay, so we've found the misalignment, right? We've figured out we've gotten the signal. I'm so frustrated. Okay, now what? And something that I strive to do is to help people to understand how to use their human design practically, right? So how can you understand that, and how can you move and put it into work? It's one thing to know your human design and kind of understand what it all means, but it's a totally other thing to understand how do I use it? How do I make it work for me, right? If abundance is my birthright, how do I help my human design help me work? This is where your signature theme comes in, right? So your signature theme for me, a manifesting generator, is satisfaction, right? And generators as well. So you're looking for those times where you're like, oh, yes. This is why I teach all of my clients to understand, what does it feel like when it's a yes in your body? What does it feel like when it's a no in your body? Even if you're not a sacral being, understand what lights you up. What makes you feel so excited that you're like, oh, I'm a kid in a candy store. I can't wait. This is so cool. I feel so alive, right? I get goosebumps thinking like getting in that energy. And that's the kind of energy that when I talked about my accounting, right? My monthly little accounting date with myself, that's the kind of energy I want to be in when I look at my accounting books, because that is going to just keep bringing me so much joy, right? It's going to keep me in curiosity. It's going to keep me in my innocence motivation, which is a whole other topic, but that is also something that can get you into all of this and keep you excited and out of essentially burnout or energy depletion. Now, what does the no feel like? The no feels like me being frustrated, sitting here, doom scrolling, right? Not doing the things that I know I need to do because they're just not feeling fun for me. So that's what I mean when you're looking for, okay, what happens when something is not, when I'm doing something that I'm like, oh, I probably don't really want to be doing that. Keep in mind those things. And again, when you work with me, we really take a look at that stuff, right? Because I want to understand what is a yes for you, what is a no for you, and how does that intertwine, right? How does that show up every day? So, and I want to remind you of this, like, again, even if you've never looked at your human design chart, you already know these signals. Okay. And as humans, we have kind of taught ourselves to not listen to the body, not listen to that energy. And that is a really important part of being an entrepreneur, right? I would say it's an important part of being a human because it's going to keep you more in check. It's going to shed the things that you don't want around, and it's going to bring in the things that you do want around. Okay. Human design really just kind of gives us language for what your nervous system has already been trying to tell you. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of meat and potatoes here, okay? Let's talk about how each human design type can use this in your client journey. So this is just kind of quick hits. It's 3 tips, right? Or 3 things for each type. So it's going to be your aligned journey, your misalignment, and then red flags, right? Things to look for. Okay. So generators and manifesting generators, I've included you both together because we all have sacral, whether we have sacral authority or not, we all have a defined sacral, and that kind of matters here. Okay. So for generators and manifesting generators, your aligned journey is going to feel a lot like responsive, energizing, conversational. Okay. Misalignment tends to show up again as frustration. You're pushing, you're forcing, you're like, why won't people just engage with me? Okay. Some red flags to think about for generators and manifesting generators are creating journeys that require constant initiation or cold outreach. So we're not thinking about sending tons of DMs per day. What a lot of my manifesting generator and generator clients do is what I've taught them in the 20 leads in 2 weeks framework, right? They're sending 1 to 3 new messages a day. And it's usually to people who have followed them or added them as a friend who look like they could be a potential client or collab or referral partner, right? So you're looking at these people's profiles, you're responding to that, going, oh, okay, cool. I love that you're along for this journey. I'm going to follow you back and I'm going to say, hey, Susie, thanks so much for following me here. I'm so glad you're here. And it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be more than that. Manifestors, an aligned client journey for you is going to feel clean, clear, and very direct, right? Think about your urges to inform here. Okay, misalignment is going to show up as anger and resentment. You're going to feel angry. And I've seen this happen in manifestors. I don't have a ton of manifestor clients. However, when I do, they are usually coming to me and they're angry. Why isn't my stuff working? Right? And it's funny, but also like, let's take the feedback that you're feeling and explore what is that like trigger thing. Okay. So for manifestors, your red flags are going to be over nurturing or wanting and waiting for permission, right? You're waiting for permission to invite them instead of just saying, hey, Susie, thanks for following me. I'd love to offer you my freebie. Does that align for you? That is very informative, very clean, clear, direct. Okay. So for projectors, your aligned journey probably feels like being recognized, feels very spacious, feels very invitational. You're like, hey, come on in. Yeah, the water's great here. I'd love to share this with you. Okay. And misalignment is going to show up as bitterness. Now, I have a projector daughter. I have a lot of projectors in my community. I love you all so much, but man, when you're bitter, whoo, woof. It's almost more powerful to me than a manifestor's anger. So when you're bitter, it's going to be like, nothing works. Why am I even doing this? I'm just going to go get a job, blah, 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 right? Like all of those things. Nobody invites me to do anything. All of those things I've heard my projector clients say. And I just want to say, take a deep breath, allow your shoulders to come down, and just know that like, it doesn't have to be that hard. When it's that hard, something is misaligned. So for projectors, your red flags, it's going to be things like trying to keep up with volume-based strategies, right? So you're out there looking at all of these influencers, creators who are posting 10 times a day on 27 platforms. If you want to, and it feels aligned, you can. If you don't want to, it's okay. You don't have to. I just want to give you that permission right now. Like you don't have to do things you don't want to do. It's okay to find what is an energetic match for you, regardless of your human design type. Okay. Now, reflectors, you are going to have an aligned client journey that feels flexible, that feels spacious, that feels really reflective, right? Again, it's going to be kind of that open, like breath of fresh air for you. And your misalignment is going to show up as disappointment. Oh, I'm so bummed that happened that way. I wish that would have happened differently, right? It's going to be that like, so think about this. If you start to feel disappointment, how can you shift that into surprise and delight? Oh, wow. I didn't think that's so cool. It worked out that way. Okay. Your red flag as a reflector is going to be locking yourself into very rigid marketing timelines. For a lot of my reflector clients, I tell them, look at the moon. If you're a woman, understand your cycle, right? When are your different phases of your cycle? Cycle syncing is very important for reflectors. Understand, what does your energy look like on any given week? Look at the transits. You're doing a lot more of that ethereal, like looking at a lot of the stars and like what is happening, so that you understand basically what the energy around you is translating and transferring into you as here, which I know is very woo. But that a lot of times reflectors, that's what they need. They need to understand the energy. Now, when reflectors work with me, I will often tell them, okay, hey, I'm a Manny-Gen and I'm going to amp you up, not intentionally like spin the wheel, but you are going to be able to utilize my energy to do things. Same thing for any type, right? You're going to feed off of other people's energy. So something important to understand here is that you need to understand, okay, I'm going to be around this person. This is the kind of energy they have. Am I ready to receive it? And then what happens after we, part ways for the day? Do I need to make sure I have time scheduled to take a nap where I can kind of wind down? Or can I keep going? Like, that's where some of the burnout comes in, is when you are around other people, you're receiving their energy, right? There's energy exchange happening. And then you go away and you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, right? That's where you need to know, okay, I need to have some downtime after a meeting so that I can decompress. I can allow the information to settle. I can keep what I need and I can let the rest go. That's something very important when you're in coaching and mentoring relationships. Now, everything that I've just talked about, none of these mean you cannot use certain tools. Okay. It just means you're going to use the tools differently, which is why when people work with me, whether it's in my group program or in my one-on-one, this is something that I tell everyone. Here are things that I know work. Either I've seen them work, I've personally used them, I've seen other people use them. However, it is your job as my client to take that information, pick apart the pieces, and put into place what is going to work for you. And your energy is going to tell you, yes, this will work. No, I don't think so. Right? And when you have that, ooh, yes, or that, both of those, it's fine. And I would love for you to explore, okay, well, why does this feel like a yes? Is it a yes because it's something new and exciting? Or is it a yes because like, oh yeah, I can envision myself doing that. I can feel it, like I feel welcomed home when I think about that. And if it's a no, is it a no because you've never tried before? Is it a no because your body is like, no, thank you, right? Or is it a no because you're like, ooh, that's new and that's change, and I don't know how I feel about change. So those are those are things to think about for you here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about using the not self and signature themes just kind of as a weekly check-in. Okay, and I invite you to do this because these themes can show up along with your motivation, right? Your not self, your signature theme, in conjunction with your motivation in your human design, can be very powerful things. Okay. And I'm not talking about your motivation in this episode because quite honestly, it could be its own thing. And maybe next week, that's what we'll talk about. So when you're using or tapping into how your body, how your mind, right? How you as a person is responding to things here. I would love to offer you 4 reflections. And this is something that you could use as a weekly check-in tool. Okay. So it's 4 questions. I tend to ask myself this at the beginning and at the end of the week, sometimes midweek, right? Sometimes I'll do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes it's just Monday. Sometimes it's just Friday, right? Like, so I use this every week, sometimes multiple times. So the first question is, how does my business feel lately? What's going on in my business? And this is how I really started to simplify what I was doing. I explored these 4. So how does my business feel lately? Where am I forcing? Where am I avoiding? And where does it feel easy or natural? And this could be, where does it feel easy or natural to show up? What am I avoiding, right? And when I use the accounting example, I was avoiding that for a long time in my business because it just wasn't fun for me. I made it fun and now I want to do it, right? So it's not because it was wrong for me. I just wasn't approaching it with the right energy. So I would love for you to reflect on these questions, right? How does my business feel lately? Where am I forcing? Where am I avoiding? Or what am I avoiding? And where does it feel easy or natural to show up, to be, to exist in my business? And as always, make sure you slide into my DMs and let me know the answers to these questions, because this is something that really can help you energetically leap forward and do more things in less time in your business, because you're aligning your energy when you're answering and being really honest. That's also something I want to, talk about just for a moment here. Be really honest with yourself, right? If you're not honest with yourself, you're not in integrity. And again, that is also a whole other podcast topic to talk about, because being in integrity in your business, even if you don't use human design, doing what you say you'll do is very, very important for your self-trust and for others to trust you. Okay. Now, let's wrap this up, because I want you to really go and do, right? Like, take an audit of these, all the stuff that I talked about, or make sure you book an offer audit, because they're free right now. And these are things that, like, I will help you see what is the next right step for you. So today we talked all about your client journey, right? And you want your client journey to support your energy, because that is going to amplify your energy to bring people in. When your energy is drained, it's going to repel everyone. So most people, again, it's hard to see this stuff when you're in it, in your business, which is why the offer audits that I offer are so powerful. And it really gives you a chance to just allow someone else to reflect back what they see. And it's not fixing, it's clarity. And that's why I offer the offer audits, because it's not tearing your business apart. It's reflecting, it's mirroring back to you what people see from the outside, so that you can shift things on the inside, so that it can be clearer, so that it can be simpler, so that it can be easier for you to show up, do what you're going to do, and then bring clients in. Because yes, abundance is your birthright here. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're confused, if your clients or potential clients are confused, if you feel like your energy is misaligned, right? An offer audit is absolutely something that you need. And, whether you're loving human design like me, which I imagine if you are loving human design, you're probably listening to this, right? Even if you're just looking for smarter business decisions, that is where this offer audit really meets you where you are. So I would love to invite you to absolutely book an offer audit. I've yapped about it now for 37 minutes. But really, these are things that will help you make everything click. in your business, where it is right now, and will show you what is the next right step for me. So again, make sure you go to the show notes below, grab your offer audit. If you are listening to this and you are reflecting on those questions, make sure to slide into my DMs. Let me know the answers. You can find me at Maggie Lynn, Lynn mentoring, or at the Chaos to Clarity podcast, both on Instagram. Let me know how you're loving this. Let me know what questions you have. What things came up for you during this episode that I can support you with, right? I'm in the DMs. I'm answering your questions there. I love hearing your feedback. It helps me refine things. It helps me amplify things. It helps me make sure that my stuff is aligned for you. Make sure you follow, like, share, all the things. If you would, leave me a review. That would be amazing. That will also help me show up more, get in front of more ears of people who need to hear this. And I will see you in the next episode.